In 1925, one man printed a fortune in a nation's own money. Not counterfeit, real. Printed by the same firm that printed the real thing, the same presses, the same paper, the same ink. When it was over, the Bank of Portugal could not tell you which of its own banknotes were genuine. Because all of them were. The forgeries and the real notes were, in every physical particular, the same object. The archive never closes. Tonight's file, Banco de Portugal against Waterlow and Sons. Hold one question as we begin, counsel. If a banknote is real, printed by the right printer, on the right paper, indistinguishable from every other, then what exactly was stolen? That question took the finest court in the British Empire 7 years to answer, and the answer is stranger than the crime.
Portugal, 1925. A young republic, barely 15 years old and already exhausted. A ruined economy, a currency that had lost most of its value, a government that changed almost by the season. Arthur Virgílio Alves dos Reis, 28 years old, the son of an undertaker, deep in debt, with a talent that the century would remember. He had begun his career by forging his own diploma, a degree in engineering from a university that had never enrolled him. It worked. It got him a post in the colonies. It taught him the lesson of his life. A good enough document is worth more than the truth it pretends to be.
Understand what kind of criminal we are dealing with, counsel. Not a thief. A thief takes a thing that exists and moves it. Race did something the law had barely imagined. He did not steal money. He manufactured the authority to create it.
His instrument was a contract. He drafted a document purporting to authorize a printing of banknotes for the Bank of Portugal. 500 escudo notes bearing the portrait of Vasco da Gama. To it, he attached forged signatures, the governor of the bank, the deputy governor, and the seal of the Portuguese Republic itself. The cover story was Angola. The notes, the contract said, were destined for the colony, to be overprinted for use there. It explained the secrecy. It explained the scale. And it gave the whole scheme a patriotic shape. A struggling empire quietly financing its distant territory.
And here is the stroke that lifts this case out of ordinary fraud. Race did not print the notes himself. He took his forged contract to London, to Waterlow and Sons, the firm that already printed the genuine banknotes of the Bank of Portugal. He asked the real printer to print more of the real thing, and the real printer said yes.
Then the printer is a fool, Thorne, but not a criminal. Waterlow saw signatures they recognized, a seal they recognized, a contract for a client they had served for years. They did what any printer does. They printed what the paper told them to print.
They did not verify. They held a contract to print the money of a sovereign nation, and they did not send a single telegram to that nation's bank to ask whether it was real. Hold that, counsel. Because 7 years later, the highest court in England will decide that this failure, this one unasked question, cost them a fortune.
Waterlow printed 200,000 notes. 500 escudos each, a face value of 100 million escudos. By one reckoning, close to 1% of all the money then circulating in Portugal, created by a single forged contract, and entirely genuine.
Now Race has a problem that no ordinary forger has ever had. He has 100 million escudos in perfect, genuine banknotes, and no lawful way to explain where they came from. He cannot simply spend them. A man of his known debts, suddenly awash in new notes, would be arrested by the weekend. So he does the only thing large enough to hide a fortune this size. He decides to buy a bank.
The Banco Angola y Metropole. Through it, the notes could enter circulation as ordinary deposits and loans, laundered not by hiding them, but by pouring them into the open economy. Reis and his partners bought property, businesses, farms, foreign currency. They began, quietly, to buy shares in the Bank of Portugal itself.
Consider the ambition of that last step, counsel. If Reis owned enough of the Bank of Portugal, he would control the very institution with the power to investigate him. The forger was buying the courthouse. He was not trying to escape the system. He was trying to become it.
And for a season, it looked like prosperity. Money moved, credit loosened, a new bank lent freely to a tired city. Some in Lisbon believed that the economy was, at last, beginning to recover. They were watching a nation grow rich on its own forged wealth and calling it a spring.
There is a genuine puzzle buried here, counsel, and the economists still argue it. If the notes were real, and they bought real goods, and they put real men to work, was Portugal actually poorer for them? The answer is yes, but the reason why is subtle, and it is the whole moral of this file. Every one of those notes was a promise the Bank of Portugal would one day have to keep, for value it had never received.
What undid him was the smallest possible thing. A cashier, examining 500 escudo notes, noticed two that carried the same serial number. Then more. Genuine notes, perfect notes, but duplicated, because Reis had ordered the same printing twice. December 1925. Investigators raided the Banco Angola y Metropole. They found the notes. They traced the contract. They found their way at last to London and to Waterlow. Reis was arrested. The scheme collapsed in days.
And then came the true damage, which was not to Reis, but to the country. For the Bank of Portugal now faced an impossible task. It had to withdraw the 500 escudo note, all of them, because it could not distinguish its own genuine notes from the genuine notes it had never authorized. A nation was forced to recall its own money and confess that it could not tell its money from a lie.
Reis was tried in Portugal. The case dragged for years. In the end, he was convicted and sentenced to 20 years. He served 15 and died a decade after his release in 1955. Poor. But the criminal trial is not the file I brought you tonight. The harder question was decided in a courtroom in London, and it was not about guilt at all.
The Bank of Portugal sued Waterlow. The printer, it said, had breached a plain duty, never to print the bank's notes without the bank's authority. Waterlow scarcely denied it. The fight was not over whether they were liable. It was over a question that sounds simple and is not. How much is a genuine banknote worth to the bank that must honor it but never sold it?
And the answer, in strict logic, is almost nothing. What did it cost the bank to produce a note? A few pence of paper and ink. The paper currency was inconvertible. It could not be exchanged for gold. A promise redeemable in nothing more than another promise. Waterlow should pay for paper and printing, not for a number written on it that represents no real thing.
That argument won in the Court of Appeal, counsel, in part. The damages were cut to £300,000. And then the case climbed to the House of Lords, the highest court in the empire. And the Lords rejected the cynicism of it. They held that when the bank was forced to redeem a genuine note it had never issued, it suffered a real loss, the full face value of that note, not the cost of the paper. The value the public had given, in goods and labor, believing the note was true. Counsel, the judgment.
1932. Judgment for the Bank of Portugal. £610,392. The face value of the notes the bank had been forced to honour, converted to sterling, plus the cost of the printing itself.
Sit with what the Lords actually decided, counsel. They said that the value of money is not the paper and not the metal it can no longer be exchanged for. The value of money is the belief that it is real. Rees had not stolen paper, he had stolen belief. And belief, the Lords held, has a price that can be written in pounds and shillings. And notice who paid: counsel. Not only Rees, who sat in a Portuguese cell. Waterlow, a respectable London firm that forged nothing, stole nothing, and printed exactly what a convincing contract instructed, was ruined by the judgment. Their crime was not dishonesty, it was trust. They believed a document, as the whole system is built to believe documents. Rees had simply found the one place where the machine could not tell a true order from a false one, and fed it. I have read this file more times than I can defend. And what it leaves me is not outrage at Rees, who was merely the most gifted liar of his age. It is a colder thought. Every contract you sign, every note in your pocket, every signature you trust, rests on the assumption that somewhere, someone checked. Rees proved that often, no one has. The whole edifice of commerce stands on documents we believe because they look like the truth. He did not break that faith. He simply showed us it was there. The law is what we wrote. Justice is what we wanted. I am condemned to read the difference, one case at a time. Next week's file. A man was hanged for a murder, and a full confession arrived, 20 years too late, from someone else. The cold corridor is waiting. If you would like to study the evidence the way counsel does, the case brief is in the description. Filed, never forgotten.